G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talk Stuff, your reliable source of social and political commentary from inside the manosphere. Today I bring you a comprehensive Ukraine war update for the 16th of May 2026. In this video we're going to be discussing a number of topics, including the latest war of words between Russia and Ukraine, as well as those surrounding the conflict. Stay informed with our daily updates on the war that I bring you from a variety of sources, most of whom are Ukrainian. And in fact, did you know most of the Telegram channels, even some of those, some Russian language, are from Ukraine. Other than the Ministry of Defense, I've actually not seen a military blogger or any channel, so I think there is some sort of protective measures in place, whether it be from Russia or someone else. Hello, big brother. I love you. Yeah. So take it with a grain of salt that I think even the most European of Europeans is also, not authentic as well. Though they often chirp the same chirp. Now, there's been a prisoner exchange as well. Having completed the first stage, they are now preparing for the second stage. Most of the POWs, after being released, were taken to their respective countries for medical checks and to be paraded, given national flags, given little medals, and then taken away to be debriefed. But I think there's never-ending parade of propaganda to try and prop up this war. But in reality, you can see the deep sadness on people's faces, and that's something you cannot hide. You cannot hide the fear and sadness. Now, once upon a time, even in communist countries, you could see happy people. It's weird how I'm increasingly seeing the sadness in the Ukrainian people, where others just see the fake smiles. Maybe it's just my experience that I see the sadness in people's eyes. But here we go. I don't always pick it up either, so carefully hard hit. Now, over 294, 296, those are the average figures for today. Russian drones and missiles. If there's 267, if there's 24 hits, or is it 24 locations? That's sometimes I wonder. So I think it's going to be 24 locations, and because there's more than 24 drones that got through. But you can see around the map, they didn't mark off 24 locations. And they even say here that there was an attacker on the police. Why it's got to do with the special military operation? Well, in Ukraine, only the militia have guns. So, outside of the army, only the militia and police have guns, apparently. Though, conflicting stories, of course, about gun ownership in Ukraine. But for some reason, every time there's an attack on a police station or they bring that up. And I think that is because the Ukrainian authorities know more than they're letting on. And that there is a thing called attacks on society. You often hear them about China, but Ukraine is starting to suffer them, where an outraged person, usually an anti-war protester or someone who lost a loved one, will attack a police station, the post office. Kharkiv post office has been burnt down many times, although often by the Russians. Now, Kharkiv was particularly hit, not just Kiev and Kryvyi, as well as this area here, where there's river traffic. As we zoom out, there's not much, but attacks on Rostov and Don are pretty usual. Attacks on Russia are pretty usual. There's only a few successful ones. There's a lot of activity in the northern buffer zone, but nothing really substantial. There's been reports of fighting, but most of it is Kupiansk. A little bit of progress in the last 48 hours, but that's about it. I mean, little. They're playing musical trenches at the moment in the outskirts of Kupiansk. It's the same here in Bovilia and along the Donetsk frontier. Same with Lyman. There are different reports about Lyman and where they're at, but when you look up, this is apparently this here, that's part of Lyman. And so up to this line here, this here, all this in here, up to here. Lyman's, yeah, this is actually a state forest. And the Russians are actually made progress here. Made progress here and here. Now, not directly north. They've gone west, not south. Here they've gone south a little bit. And here they've gone west a little bit. Here they've made progress a little bit. But it's going north by the looks of it on other maps. And here, there's the Russians are on the outskirts of Pavilia and stretching out here as well. So, and on other maps, not just Russian maps, there are 2 Ukrainian maps, and I think Sputnik's the only Russian one, and they all of them in Russia use the same Sputnik map because it's an official map. But there's unofficial maps for Ukraine showing different positions of troops and stuff. Now, here there's reports, but nothing substantial. Here there's reports of fighting and movement, nothing substantial. And on the rest of the map, it is also lots of fighting with only a little bit of ground. I think here. As you can see, there's a lot of fighting. And in here. And as you can see, the Russians are on the outskirts of Airstrip 1, that odd-shaped town. Now remember, they've had setbacks, but they've also had small victories here. And setbacks and small victories here. It's interesting that there's the other. This town, for some reason, reporters seem to mix up with Pavosk. They are similar, Pavoske. And there's, see? Again, this is all about Soviet era. But there are also we've had an update. We finally had an update, but not on the news feed. Okay, so this fighting is ongoing in these 4 areas. As you can see, 4 increased. Whoa. Russians. Is it, yeah, so what is ever happening here? I thought for a moment there was a blue marker. But it's the water. I'm sorry. I thought it was over this. Hold on. Sorry for that. Bit of a coughing fit. Alright, so as we go around the map, there is nothing substantial to report so far, except that's not the whole story. And yeah. So, buckle up, buckaroos. Alright, so this channel's brought to you by, this channel's sponsored by you, the video audience. Empire of Elves, that's one word, empireofelves.myshopify.com, links in the description below. Support the channel by a mug. That'd be a mug, mate. Alright, so reports of the T-14 program's demise were greatly exaggerated. Yes, Putin chose the T-90 plant over the T-14. They only have a few T-14 plants. The T-14 is a specialist tank that's going to take some time to implement and to mass produce. But they are using this tank in drone warfare. And they are producing anti-drone technologies. Now, showing off a bunch of stuff and pointing to stuff and saying, ta-da, is nothing new. Everybody does it. It's marketing. But the idea that the tank can take on a swarm of drones, well, yeah. How long does it last? Well, they've updated its gun. As I told you, they're coming out with a 152mm variant. Yeah. Increased cruise range, increased speed, land speed, maintaining the same weight at 40, just under 50 tons. Because of ground pressure. But as you can see, they've got the mortar smoke canisters. They've got the drone protection flaps. They've got the short range but effective anti-drone technologies on the sides with the so-called electronic pulses that supposedly kill drones. They've got the gun, of course, and they've also got reactive plates which are short of their showing, as you can see. But the important one is the ones on the side here. These are allegedly electronic warfare points. There's further canisters in here. Further canisters here. They've got smoke and other things. Allegedly. And there you go. From the T-14, from the original Kharkiv design. Yeah, they are projecting a number of different models. They go from T14 to the T28. So you got the T14. It's not showing here, but you got the T14, T15, the T20, T24, and the T28, the Leningrad. Now the Leningrad, you can actually go back to World War II and the big guns, siege guns, or carriage guns and rail guns, as sometimes called, though in the modern era they're not called rail guns, but back then rail gun meant, too big to mount, had to be moved by rail only, or battleship guns as sometimes they were called. But the idea of a land battleship, yeah, this was bigger. This one is a siege gun at 152. It's the smallest, actually, of the siege guns. But they have radar out to around over 1,000 metres. So, according to some, it's between 1,200 and 1,400, like most small radar units. It is limited, but they have laser detection that and all-round smoke, different smoke. Yeah, there's the all-round smoke canisters there. It's got radar, grenade launchers. It's got hard kill, soft kill technologies. The hard kill, of course, is the guns. The soft kills the electronic pulses on the sides. All of this is hope, and it's like anything. No country has the technology yet, what they would call the superior tank, right? The superior tank where, sure, the American tank can take a lot of hits. Most countries can't match it. But what Russia can't match in firepower or resistance, they try to match with numbers. So they're trying to make the T14 to be of a design that they can mass produce. And they have had problems, okay? No one, not even the Russians, have covered up the fact that they have had problems mass producing this tank. And they are still producing them, however, in small numbers. I think the total orders was cut down to 284, but that still means it's going into service as a main battle tank, as a frontline main battle tank, alongside. The idea is the T90, and that as they get, though they're still producing the T72, it's the T80 that got cut, and eventually other tanks will get cut as well as they. There's radar, but there's also the other electronic devices on the side. The idea is that they can detect and kill drone swarms. The idea is, however, tanks are not meant to be relied upon, rather than supported and assisted by artillery and troops and drone technologies. Now, in Ukraine, they have reported that Russia has struck critical infrastructure and facilities in Ismail. Yet here we have no such reports. We have different reports. So, again, this is the problem. Ukraine doesn't seem to have the left hand in Ukraine and right hand in Ukraine just doesn't seem to be matching up. But sometimes they do, and say the same song. UAVs, we shot them all down, but then there were hits in some locations, but they were only falling debris, only civilians, and it gets tiring, but there's no denying that civilians do get injured, particularly by falling drone debris. But Russia is reporting Borovara and Kukovia as taken over, according to Valery Gizimov, General Chief of Staff for the Russian Army, and that there are fighting underway in other nearby areas. This is approximately a 350-kilometre front in which Russia is also reporting other successes in Krasny Lyman and Shikova. They are fighting in the national park there, and they have advanced in several areas. Now, there are other maps that do verify some of the information, but no one map verifies all the information, which makes it hard. However, researching into a story from Russia, I traced it back to an Irish Sun who is reporting of political upheaval and uncertainty in Denmark. Now, Denmark recently cancelled, or allegedly cancelled, a US missile order and awarded that contract to Ukraine. As you can see, they're displaying the Flamingo, and it's shrouded, so the Russians can't see what's going on. Yeah. I'm sure your break room is very important to the Russians. They want to know the design and specifications of your break rooms so that they can maximize their toilets to match your toilets. Now, apparently this was going to be in the southern Jutland. This is fuel for 5-point missiles. However, the project was quietly halted, and 5 Point's chief designer and co-owner was contacted and confirmed this with the Irish Sun. But Irish Sun is reporting from RT, and RT is supporting from the Financial Times, and the Financial Times is quoting the Irish Sun. So my guess is that the reporter sold the story to 3 outlets. Makes sense. Now, Denmark is facing difficulties. Now, they're trying to form a new government. They failed to form a new government. Parts of the old government are still working with some of the newly elected people. Some of the people who lost office haven't stepped down. It's a shit show. Typical social democrats. Okay. There's a leak called the Mid-Ditch tapes. They have brought under scrutiny 5 Points operations in Denmark after Denmark confirmed that the voices on the tape were indeed real. They involved associates of Zelensky, who run several operations, including 5 Point and other operations in Poland, Denmark, France, etc. And they all connect to Yamek, who's been accused of channeling illicit funds into luxury real estate development, as well as directly into cash payments to people, including a 4th partner who the media reports to be Zelensky himself, but he's referred to as Zeus. Although it's spelled Zeus, they pronounce it Zeus. Z-E-U-S. Zeus. Right. Apparently, Zeus received the bulk of the money, in which the others only received a commission for the facilitating transfers. Only a Ukraine boss has that much power, because normally when the mafia gets money, they go, "Who? One for me, one for you. 1, 2 for me, 2 for you. 1, 2, 3 for me, a third one for you." Right? So who's ever taken the bulk of the cut has been so if the bagman only got a commission of 10.3 million, imagine what Zayas has been collecting from all these organizations. Now, according to Denmark, there is a former Zelensky these do connect to Zelensky's former chief of staff, Andrei Yemek. Now, you're not guilty by association. Yemek's activities may be his own, and Zayas may not be Zelensky himself. Remember, there's only 2 people who know the truth. That's three. Yemek, the former minister Alansky Krymov, and the other one, Dromik, who's on the run. Only 3 people in the world know who Zayas is. I wonder what sort of life expectancy those men now have, particularly if they get into a prison. So life expectancy of politicians in Ukraine is very up in the air right now, but it's not Russia who's killing them. This has been confirmed by several sources that there is trouble in Ukraine, and that Andrei Yemek himself has not spoken, but others around him, as anonymous sources to the Ukrainian newspapers, all point to the Minich tapes as real, that Zelensky's former chief of staff, however, claims he was not involved in criminal activities, only facilitating legitimate business deals for which he received healthy commissions. Usually that's how it goes with a lawyer. They don't ask the source of the money, and they don't verify. And this is allegedly what these cash withdrawals from Austrian banks facilitated as cash withdrawals. But the pro-Ukrainian deputy foreign minister also serves as the defense minister, and the prime minister stated that Copenhagen has done everything they can to follow the money they've given to Ukraine. However, the difficulty is they go into banks and then they come out as cash and disappear. So the scandal widens as Denmark now said this is unacceptable. They wanted transparency for Firepoint, its productions, because this was supposed to be a pan-European air defense shield, claiming that they were going to sell these to the Gulf states and other countries. And yeah, we're talking alleged $100 million just for a small energy deal. And this is only a handful of missiles that have been produced. Most of them have been unsuccessful. Don't forget, the bulk of them that were initially produced were tests, and those tests, some of which failed, and also a lot of them were shot down, that they shot into Russia, and some of them were sold off to other countries and no one's tested them, or no one's announced the results of their independent testing. So again, people who dismiss things as Russian disinformation don't put any thought into it. But it is confirmed that Zelensky's former chief of staff is on bail, faces another arrest charges. They're struggling to come up with bail. He's sort of on house arrest. they're trying to. He's saying he needs to work to come up with the money. Now he's claiming his money's caught up in the real estate deal. Now, these luxury apartments magically catch fire and insurance. So Ukraine is having trouble with insurance and all sorts of things and alleged rumors. But there's also a bigger growing scandal, and that is the wheat scandal and commissions and Poland buying Ukrainian wheat at a much higher rate, while claiming that they got it at a discount. But that is not confirmed. Poland is denying there's any problems. Polish farmers are screaming that Ukrainian wheat is riddled with fungus, and when they bring it into the warehouse, it's enough to have that entire warehouse shut down and ruin the entire crop. And they're claiming Ukraine has an unfair advantage because their crops are paid for, whereas the wheat producers in Poland have to wait to be paid. If their crop doesn't make it to market, they only get compensation from the government. It's a fast-growing problem. Now, Turkey has decided to cut again for the 6th time in a row Ukrainian wheat. It's coming from Pacific regions, although some allege that it is just cutting out Ukrainian wheat from occupied territories. But the farmers in occupied territories say they get no guaranteed payment from Russia, and there's a deal in place that wheat from Ukrainian ports is not supposed to be segregated. But the deal to supply is being honoured, and so they must honour their payments as promised under trade deals. Ukraine has, of course, talk about ending the war. Again, so has Russia. But Trump has called them out, and apparently Ukraine has not come to the table. He hasn't given specifics, but when asked about Geneva talks, the claim is Ukraine has not shown up. And Ukraine has been talking now for the last week about, when will Russia show up? And apparently it's the other way around, that according to the Russians, they have shown up. And we do know Russia has delegations around the world. Ukraine doesn't. So is this a case of bad timing or opportunistic timing? Or is Ukraine deliberately holding out, waiting for the Europeans to be accepted as part of their delegation? Who knows? Because Donald Trump, all he said was they have time, but they better be quick about coming to the negotiation table. And have I not told you many times that some time ago, before the whole announcement of a China meeting, Trump did remind everyone that he put a time on his patience for the Ukraine war before he completely wipes his hands of it, and the US will honour trade deals, but there will be no more military aid. Now, the civilian aid, on the other hand, is a different story. But after the time deal, yeah. Now, the whole idea of linking Taiwan, Korea, Iran, India says, I'll solve your Iran deal, you solve the Pakistan problem. Pakistan, and then someone else has to solve the Pakistan-Afghanistan problem, and then someone else has to solve the North Korean issue, and then China says, oh, well, in order for this to go ahead, you have to give up Taiwan. And Trump has not given up Taiwan. The Russians are very pissed because China has brought up Vladivostok and how that it's Russian imperial territory, which technically belongs to the Chinese, and China wants territorial restoration. Yet, when China talks of territorial restoration, not only do they talk about Manchu, but they also mean occupying Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. You know the drill. The Chinese Empire, which is actually already bigger than it ever was, because China never had one big empire. It was Mongolia that had the big empire. China was part of it. And that broke up, primarily due to the Chinese revolutions dating back 1,600 years, off and on. China itself, or Qin, is quite small. How did they get so big? Well, other states wanted to be strong as well, and they had a war, and the winner of that war united the first China, and then they had a series of wars that united 3 more states to create a bigger China, and then they had other wars which got parts of Mongolia, etc., and then they got kicked out of various other countries. The Imperial Chinese started to consolidate their position. The Mongols took them over. By the time they got out of they had to rebuild, and then they settled into the borders they had with an independent Tibet, guaranteed by India. I think there was a treaty, 18-something, and after that, well, India decided that it was too expensive to honour that treaty, so they let the Chinese slowly take over, and after World War II, the Chinese fully invaded and took over. But then India started regretting it because the Chinese cut off all the trade from that region. It's like Ukraine. Ukraine has changed multiple times, and one of the problems is the people, for whatever reason, decide to have long memories, and I think part of it, if you want to be honest, is the enmity over the Soviet Union, and Ukraine may suffer from a psychological condition where anger has clouded judgment to the point you take out the anger on the faces, or it's a form of PTSD where you project your anger and frustrations onto someone who reminds you of someone else, and they're took it out on the ethnic Russians, because the people who controlled or destroyed Ukraine were Ukrainians. See, a lot of people don't know this. The Russian Revolution was born out of the Ukrainian revolutions, which were born out of the Austrian-Hungarian revolutions, which were born out of the Jewish uprising in World War I, which they now denied took place. The Jewish uprising was allegedly Jewish farmers cutting off supply of meat and potatoes to the German army after an uprising at a rail junction, cutting off supplies to the Western Front, the Eastern Front, and with the if it had not been for the collapse of the Eastern Front, the Russians and the Austrian-Hungarians, would have been overrun by the Russians. But that ultimately led to more uprisings and breakups, I think in 1924, of the Austrian. Now, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire was born out of defensive needs against larger neighbours, and again, all leading to the idea of a united Europe to try and stop these things. But again, you had a Eastern Commonwealth who pretty much had the same idea. They were competitors with the idea of a European Union, and they started creating, and they were actually older, and this is where and this became the Warsaw Pact under the Soviet Union, even though the Lithuanian Commonwealth itself, that formed Poland and other states, including Ukraine, long broke up, but they still had the ideas there in their history. So the Soviet Union was not born out of a single idea from Karl Marx. Karl Marx didn't even envisage, he just wanted to unite all the Muslims in and take over the British Empire. People don't really know much about Marx. They just get told, hey, he wrote this in Das Kapital, and then find out he didn't. So, it was actually someone else, who we can't say, Adolf, who came up with the quote on workers' pay being essential to a harmonious society. But if you go back, he's sort of paraphrasing Henry Ford, who felt that in order to have a harmonious workforce, they had to be able to afford the goods and services they produced. What an amazing concept. It was not unions who came up with the weekend or healthcare either. That was Henry Ford. So we have a lot of things that the left claim. And as for welfare, or the modern welfare state, that was Bismarck, the most conservative of conservatives, who felt it was a preservation of the Christian state. A duty, of the Christian state. And for a while, Ukraine was like that as well. Now, whether the war of words in Ukraine right now about where they're going to fund the next round, because don't forget, this 90 billion is going to be eaten up. Ukraine's budget is around 127 billion. Ukraine is going to end up somewhere between between 400 and 800 billion in debt, depending on its GDP output, how much of its grain gets bought, how much of its resources make it to market, how much oil revenue they are going to make from the pipelines, because they have lost some, only about 27 billion, but still that's a lot. But their GDP is down, their currency is devalued, so increasing pay is may not keep pace. And again, this is all speculation, because no one knows how much of Ukraine GDP has been destroyed, how much of it is foreign enterprises included, like Firepoint, etc. And they're including the whole payment. They're not deducting expenses, and they're just printing money, which a lot of countries basically would call it cooking the books. And normally the World Economic Forum or some big investment organisation like Moody's would point this out. But it's Ukraine. So they seem to get away with everything. And again, there's a time and place where Israel was getting away with those sorts of shenanigans as well. But then again, so was many Arab states. So again, so were many Eastern European states. It seems to be a point in time where the West goes, oh, you're poor, you're broke, you're disorganised. I will let things slide because your culture of anti-corruption isn't there yet. The excuse making is actually enabling and not pressuring Ukraine to clean up its act. Now, I'm not calling out Ukraine just because Zelensky's a Jew or because Israel done it in the past. Many people in Israel are highly critical of its government and its financial policies and its lack of transparency on how it comes up with its magic numbers. Remember, we don't know exactly how much, but we do know Barack Obama put a caveat on the expenses, so he actually did something right. Israel just doesn't get aid. It has to be in the form of bought goods and services and trade. And these technologies, they still apparently, allegedly, still carry some US patents, and they're not entirely Israeli. It's just that the companies who invest in the time money, George Soros Foundation, and again, these are not original technologies. They're just, remember, a lot of the things, like Ukraine claims, laser technologies, which are in fact technologies they acquired from Israel. So, yeah, Zelensky's doing a Netanyahu on Netanyahu. And this is creating friction where Israel is threatening to cut off technologies. Wow, if we do that to you, when you do that, when you claim our technologies as your own and we cut you off, you cry. I mean, everyone is doing naughty doing the dirty to everyone else. As Trump said, they do things to us, we do things to them. And right now, Russia's engaged in a huge retaliation. We don't know how many missiles and drones. 300. There's going to be more than that tomorrow. We'll find out then. But for now, that's all I've got for the update. I think the Ukraine war is going slow, but there's now and again growth spurts. But Russia's taking nothing significant now for months. A clear sign of stalling. But it appears to be deliberate, because Russia has way more resources than they've put into Ukraine. Their economy still continues to grow. Heck, I could look it up right now. I think it was 0.8 last month. What's it this month? China's economic growth is down to 0.4. All right. They're saying real GDP growth 0.2 in the first quarter. Maybe 0.8 was December. Oh, annual. Yeah. Expected previous estimates. So consumer prices are high, 33-year. There's a drop. China's had it, but a lot of this is the lack of, some of it is sanctions, particularly energy, but some of it is the fall in production in China. But this is the thing. If China's growing and buying so much Russian oil, why have they got companies now that are... How many companies? Yeah. But revised economic figures... Yeah, negative income increase. Yet they claim an increase. China claims World Bank figures, real growth of 3, raw growth of 5. I don't know, adjusted for inflation. But according to this, which is probably World Bank figures on Wikipedia, they've had negative profit growth. So, again, right, that's why you can't trust, right? If they want Russia to look bad, they'll come up with something, real GDP, adjusted for inflation. Yeah. Or other euphemisms. Or seasonal, remember, seasonal adjustments. Again, it's very hard to say, but it's definite that Ukraine has the war and deliberate economic attacks. Now, Russia, they have to... I mean, I know they have to live with what they're doing, and that's what Putin has said, but you've got to remember, Ukraine is showing that they have no morality when it comes to war. So, and they don't care how many civilians they hurt with attacks on Russian oil, because all they care about is their victory instead of ending the war which they started in 2014. It's like Iran is not Trump's war. It's a war he is putting an end to. That's been on hold off and on, right? And before you say Barack Obama in Iran, you're forgetting all the 7 other countries he bombed every day of his presidency. A bomb every day on 7 countries, including Syria. And he paid the blackmail to Iran on the nuclear, which funded the nuclear deal. Why? Because it was money borrowed from a European bank. You can't keep borrowing money forever. And the only reason why interest rates are high in Russia is the pressure on the Russian economy to keep interest rates high, to squash the Russian economy. But And that's because the Russians have such a high cost on borrowing. And again, that's economic opportunism and that Russia has no they're caused by sanctions. So it's not the Russian economy failing, it's the Russians been under attack for some time. Where there are plenty of other countries who have done dastardly deeds, Ukraine, who get privileges. Oops. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video and bye for now.